flood. The second one burned down, so they're really not having a good run of it, but this one's doing pretty well. We've also got in behind it, you've got the universities of Adelaide University and UniSA. They've kind of joined together and they've got a bit of an arts and media and medicine district, which comes all together really nicely. As we're putting along, I need everyone to keep their eyes out peeled for all the different native flora and fauna that you may see as we're travelling along. On the last tour we saw a few turtles, saw a lot of ducks, and all sorts of things, but you can see huge water rats, you can see, sometimes you'll see a carp jump out of the water, all sorts of stuff, heaps of native fauna around, and they often hang out in those reeds that you can see off to the right there and out in front of us. Those reeds are really good for the ecosystem. They clean up the water and they also provide habitat to these native animals. The area that we're coming through now used to be known as Bushranger Alley. It was a bit of a sketchy place back in the day, and by back in the day I don't mean the 90s, I mean the 1800s. There were bushrangers hanging about with pistols in their pockets, ready to hold people up, stick them up, your money or your life sort of thing. But we don't have to worry about that now. Up on our left you can see our medical precinct. Creeping through those trees you can see the giant cheese grater, which is the SAMRI building. The SAMRI building is the South Australian Medical Research Institute, and it does heaps of really cool research and has helped a lot of people. They partner really tightly with their next door neighbour, the Royal Adelaide Hospital, which was recently, well when I say recently, it was like 2014, but there was an upgrade on the hospital that made it the most expensive building in all of Australia. It cost about $2.4 million to build, and fully kit out with all the medical equipment, which was a great use of money. It is an awesome facility and is helping a lot of people out every day. You can see there's more of these boathouses dotted in along the river. You'll see them through the whole trip. I'll try and point out some of them. Straight up ahead of us, you can see the Torrens Weir. As you saw from that photo, the Torrens is really shallow, but the reason that photo got to be taken was because some engineer wasn't paying all that much attention down the weir, and they clicked the wrong button and somehow emptied out the river. That weir and lock through there, that will keep from flowing through right till an outlet around Henley Beach. So it is a fair old river, but don't worry, they've put in a lot more safety precautions and backup checks to make sure that they don't get stuck again and let all the water out. In through this area here was where we'll spot the turtles last time, so definitely keep those eyes peeled. Some of them have been seen bigger than this steering wheel, so they can get to a decent size. Now, there's not many people that swim in the river nowadays, but back in the day they did used to have swimming competitions through there. They'd have swim across the city, and it was also super common to just jump in around the end of this weir. This section of the river that we're in is actually the deepest bit. It is about 6-7 metres through this area, where the rest of it's mostly shallower than a metre. Over to our right there is a nice par 3 golf course nowadays, but back in the day that was where they had the old hanging tree. Now when Adelaide was first founded, it was founded by free settlers and immigrants, so it was the first state that wasn't founded by convicts. So Britain thought that it was going to be some utopia and that there'd be no need for a jail, everyone was going to behave and do the right thing. Unfortunately they weren't quite right, they did need a jail at some point, and so they built this jail that you can see directly in front of us, the old Adelaide Jail. Don't worry guys, it's not in use anymore, it's actually a museum now, but that tower that you can see right in front of us was the old gallows. Now, a bit of a fact about the old gallows is if that's where you ended up afterwards, they would bury you directly under the tower, but they'd bury you standing up and facing inside so you could never rest and never see your freedom. But that's a bit morbid, so let's go back to looking at turtles. I haven't spotted any yet, I have been having my eyes peeled. Oh, actually, right on that log, just over there, see the branch hanging down? There's a log right on the bottom, and you can see one sitting up the top, up on it, just above the water line, directly off our port side. They are pretty hard to see, but you can kind of see his neck moving around. I would go in a bit closer, but it's pretty shallow through there. Now, if we look over to our right, you can see a lovely red ochre cafe and restaurant. Up the top is traditional Australian food, and at the bottom they've got an Italian cafe. They also run the Adelaide Gondola. You can cruise up and down the Torrens as if you were in Venice in a traditional gondola, but you won't be run around by Giuseppe or Marco. You'll be run around by Roger, but he really does know his wines. Look him up if you're interested. There are a lot of different things to do around the Torrens River, particularly over summer now that we're getting some nice water. You can spend all your days on the Popeye with us, but we also recommend checking out some other places while you're here. As we are coming around, I want to bring your attention to this area in front of us. That was quite an important area for the Kaurna people. The Kaurna people are the traditional custodians of this land, and they had a strong connection to the river itself. They called it Karawirapara, which means Red Gum River. And that's because before all the urbanisation and the development of our beautiful city, there were just tons and tons of red gums lining the banks of this river. Now that we are facing back to the CBD, I want to draw your attention to some of the really cool architecture through there. A lot of these buildings have been trying to mimic other areas of South Australia and their natural beauty. I'm going to draw your attention to the smaller one on the left with all the different colours through the front. That's designed to look like the Remarkable Rocks on KI. Has anyone seen the Remarkable Rocks on KI? Awesome, yeah. Do we reckon it looks pretty similar? I reckon they did a good job. Up on the right you can see the other building next to it that's slightly taller. That one was modelled after the Flinders Ranges. You'll also notice that there's a lot of red and silver hues through the building. That's due to the high amounts of copper mining that South Australia originally did and got a lot of its fortune from back in the day. Particularly that convention centre, as we go past and take a look, you can see different streaks of red and silver, just like in a copper mine. Now, over to our left is the site of the first Christian primary school in South Australia. It was founded by the Lutherans when they came across, and it was doing really well up until they started using that tree and building that jail. They thought that's probably a little bit too close, so they moved it further down towards Adelaide Uni's current campus. But it's still a really nice area, and if you're keen on a hit of golf, it's a lovely path through golf course. If you do go walking through the area, keep an eye out, looking at the trees. Not only is there heaps of wildlife within the trees, but there's also a bit of Indigenous history. You can see, we all know what the canoe trees are, where they would cut out a canoe from the side of a tree without killing it, so that they could use it again and again. There's a few of those dotted around the place, and they're just such an excellent example of using the environment for what you need, but not destroying it and looking after it. As we're going back towards the convention centre and the festival theatre, definitely recommend there is a self-guided walking tour you can do, following all these pickets and signs right through the festival centre that will tell you all about the different artists and acts that have played there. Now, the festival centre isn't the only place that we get huge acts playing in Adelaide. They do often go across the road and play at the Adelaide Oval when they need to see huge crowds. I'll tell you a bit more about that once we can see it a bit closer. Coming up to our left, you can see Currently, the barbecue boys are out and about. If anyone's keen on renting a little boat and zipping up and down the river, cooking some food and having some beers, it's definitely a great way to spend an afternoon if you're looking for something to do. They're good friends of ours at Popeye, just like the paddle boats are. We all work together, and we're keeping people busy on the Torrens. Those paddle boats that you can see in front of us, they've been operating for about 60 years. Not the same boats, don't worry, we do upgrade them. But they're just some cool ways that you can see this lovely city. Now that we can get a bit of a better view with the Elder Park, you can really see how much that Oz Asia Festival has taken over the place. It's looking great. They've got all sorts of entertainment and food. Once you get a little bit closer, you'll be able to see how Elder Park got its name. So Elder Park was initially River Park, but because Sir Thomas Elder, he basically paid for half of South Australia, but he donated that iconic rotunda that we will see in just a moment, and he got the park named after him. He was a miner and philanthropist, and really was a great father for our state. Up on the left you can see that wharf. Now that wharf was actually built for some very special Popeye guests. What I'm going to pass around now is a photo of the Queen Mother on the Popeye. Queen Mother and the late Queen Elizabeth have both been on board the Popeye. Elizabeth came on twice. Her first time was in the 50s for her coronation tour. We made that wharf, and the whole banks of the Torrens were just packed with people hoping to wave and say hi. And they had the second Popeye out behind them with a string quartet choir on board, serenading them as they went along. Which is why whenever we wave to people on the Popeye, we've got to do the Queen's wave. Just give them a nice little... So yeah, now we can really see that rotunda that I was talking about that Sir Thomas Elder donated right in the middle. It's beautiful. It's the original one that's been sitting there ever since he donated it. As we go back under the footbridge, you can see across to the Adelaide Oval. The Adelaide Oval has been, initially was around since the 1870s or something similar. It was mostly a cricket ground, but because of the high number of Port of Crows supporters here in Adelaide, they needed to upgrade their stadium. So they did this huge upgrade less than 15 years ago, and they built it all out. But they did keep some of the original infrastructure. Over on the hillside, there's still the original scoreboard. They've just done the rest of it up so that it can hold more people. It can hold about 60,000 people for things like concerts and holds 58,000 for game days. We've had a fair few people coming through and playing at the Oval. It was opened by the Rolling Stones back in the day, well, reopened by the Rolling Stones. On the left is the Adelaide's tennis